Lena has a question as well. I finally paid off my student loans. I have about $400 a month freed up. Should I invest it or should I build more savings first? Elias Randall?
So I would start to answer this question for Lena, and thank you for the question. Great question for a young investor to ask. My initial response would be an upside down question.
Mm-hmm.
I would ask her, if you were to lose your job today, how long could you go without making a paycheck?
Interesting. Okay.
What is the answer to that question?
Okay.
Because if it's, well, I have an emergency fund, I could go 6 months without working and making income. All right, well, let's start investing some money. But if you do not have a sufficient emergency fund, I would consider doing that first or working on both of those. But if you just start socking your extra $400 a month away into an investment account and then you need some cash, you might be subject to some penalties and taxes and things you weren't planning on. And so there's a little bit of an order of operations there where, one, let's make sure we have enough cash available in an emergency fund. And if you don't, then let's figure out what is the plan to get there.
Casey, I'm just going to take, by the way, this question is asked, that she doesn't have a financial plan. And I guess it's a good thing to put some meat on the bone right away and say, hey, let's go and get that emergency fund started. But at the same time, probably needs to sit down and sketch out a financial plan for her future.
Yeah, and again, you kind of make the assumption maybe this is somebody who's a little bit younger on that side. Maybe it's a possibility it was a Parent Plus loan or something like that too. So maybe they're actually a little bit closer over to retirement. We don't necessarily know just based off of how the question is asked. However, exactly to your point, I mean, we got to figure out what the overall goals of this household is, or what Lena's goals are. What's she actually trying to accomplish? Exactly to what your point is, and I think that's what you're asking, Elias, is, well, number one, let's take care of this immediacy, like the things that could actually create some sort of financial train wreck, right? Solve that problem. Now, after we get over from there where we know that we're not going to have that, or we've maybe purchased ourselves some time by putting the correct insurances in place, right? Now, when I say insurance, your emergency fund is an insurance account. Right? It is insurance against things that are going to happen to you at some point in time in the future. It's insurance against life happening. That's what an emergency fund is. Unfortunately, you don't earn money on it. It costs you money, and that's why it is extremely boring and nobody likes to talk about them. Understand if there's any of those other goals or putting together those financial plan, kind of that next step, what are other things that are coming on that you might need access to that cash? Right? Because what we're going to be treating for those are a little bit different compared to maybe a longer term style goal, right? Because if the goal is, I'd like to save for retirement, and retirement is 35 years off, we're going to treat that a little bit differently compared to, well, I know that my car is getting ready to, go up in flames because, I had to go jump out and run around it with a fire extinguisher here yesterday.
Yeah.
Those might be slightly different priorities, at least in terms of where we need to be putting the money in terms of getting it ready.
It's interesting, too, because I just recently got back from a wedding. My neighbor's daughter got married, and we were in Chicago for the weekend for that. And he's with the Air Force. He's a captain in the Air Force, and he flies tanker transports, and she's a doctor of ophthalmology. And so this is the first time they've been together for 11 years. This is going to be the first time they will be living under the same roof, the same place at the same time, which is kind of old-fashioned quaint. But, I mean, they're both professionals in what they do, and it's really interesting how they're going to be able to put their financial future together. And her grandfather's a financial professional, so I'm sure that somebody's going to be looking over their shoulder and has had a conversation with them in order to make sure that they can take care of things like that are these other expenses. Elias Randall and Casey Mushrush with Premier Mushrush had a with Premier Investments and Wealth. It's not as bad as what I was
going to say. I have heard worse. I have heard worse.
Casey Mushrush and Elias Randall with Premier Investments and Wealth Management at premieriwm.com. Find out all the information you need right there. You can even download information. They are named to Forbes 2025 Best in State Wealth Management Team. Make an appointment online or call 800-383-6590. And it's something we're talking about, should I be investing it or building more savings first? again, we're going backwards to do this because something has nothing to do with that $400 per. There are billions of dollars that are left on the table every year in free money by people who refuse to match 401ks. Shocked me when you guys told me this. I was blown away.
So that's another thing you could do is evaluate your retirement account contributions. So I think when we first started answering this question, it was kind of under the assumption this is a newer investor. Well, okay, let's evaluate retirement contributions. Let's assume maybe this person's been a great saver and they've taken advantage of their 401k match and been doing all of these things along the way, and now they have their student loans paid off. So then it'd be a couple questions. You know, one, are you maxing out any of these accounts? Do you have room to save a little bit more? And the other thing I'll mention is, let's say when you evaluate that and you've done a financial plan and you're doing all the things that you should be doing to have success with your money, maybe this $400, you could maybe increase your lifestyle a little bit, have a little bit of fun every month too. So I think it's with this question, I think the answer is very fluid because it's really just depends on where is the person at, what do they need to accomplish with their money. And now, if you're not doing, like if you're leaving 401k money on the table and not getting your company match, well, that's a no-brainer. It's part of your compensation package. You really want to work and not get paid for the work you're doing, you should take advantage of those things.
Right.
So, when you look at it, yeah, maybe there's room for more savings. Maybe there's room for a little bit more enjoyment.
Lifestyle.
Hopefully there is.
Well, I was going to say, I'm going to pick back on that, right? And again, I think this goes back to something that you mentioned a little bit earlier on about maybe we have some sort of a plan or put together some sort of a plan. I think it would be completely and totally appropriate if she ran through a financial plan and found out that, Lena, she needed to save $250 a month, right? And then she's got a very high likelihood that she's going to hit that income level that she wants. Just go spend the other $150. You don't have to save the entire amount, but make sure that you have the savings mechanisms put in place first. And once you actually have that, then go through and by all means, I think in a situation like that, it would be appropriate to actually increase lifestyle a little bit in that particular instance.
Yeah, get yourself a coffee on the way to work.
That's right.
Go out to lunch once in a while.
Have
a little fun.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it goes back to that tagline that we used to use all the time. It's your retirement, now enjoy it. And we could just call it more, it's your money, now enjoy it. Kind of really expand that out just a little bit, because I don't think and this is always I always kind of get looked at like I've got two heads when I say this, especially to other financial professionals. I'm like, I don't think it is appropriate that you save every single penny that you possibly can. And they're like, why on earth would you not do that? Like, look at the math and all that. Like, because it's not a math statement. That is not a math comment whatsoever. That's more about, more quantity of life does not necessarily translate into quality of life. And so when we want to look at this thing where it is we want to balance the quantity versus quality aspect. And we want to make sure that you have that high quality life while having the sufficient quantity in order to make that happen. But if it's just quantity for quantity's sake, I mean, I suppose there's a handful of people that are out there that all they want to do is save and they have no other thing that they want to do other than see numbers go up on a screen. But generally, most of the individuals that I work with, they're trying to translate that over into meaningful experiences and meaningful things with either their friends or family or the people and things that they actually care about.
Casey Mushrush and Elias Randall from Premier Investments in Wealth Management answering Lena's question. I finally paid off my student loans. I have about $400 a month freed up. Should I invest it or build more savings first? I want to get to another portion of this too, because we talked about 401k, but the other vehicles for investing that are out there, a traditional IRA versus a Roth IRA, are there any, is there a preferred one depending on your current situation, your lifestyle, your age, your income, et cetera, Elias?
I think so. So one, it's going to be dependent upon your income and your tax situation. I'm a big believer in the Roth accounts for a couple different people. One, young people, certainly. You have a very long time horizon to just pay the tax today, let the money grow, let compound interest work for you on a tax-free basis. And also, I think you can make an argument for higher income earners to at least do some Roth money, right? Because here's what we know: when people retire, they don't stop spending money, right? And the more money you can get put away into a Roth account, you're doing a couple things. One, you're controlling your future taxes. Future taxes, zero, right? You don't have to worry about taxes going up or anything like that. Now, there's a lot of moving parts to it, but a lot of times I think you can make the argument for increasing contributions to Roth IRA, Roth 401k.
Okay. Gotcha. That makes sense. Premier Investments in Wealth Management at premieriwm.com. Click Get Started. Get the one-page Premier Vision document after you answer just a few questions. Are you ready for retirement? If you're like Lena here, she's saying, do I invest? Do I build more savings first? These are the kind of questions that you can answer with a financial plan, and that's what they can do for you. That's what they build at Premier Investments in Wealth Management, so you don't have to. They're the professionals at it. You go to the doctor if you're sick. You have an issue with the law. You go to a lawyer. This is why you come to people like Premier Investments in Wealth Management, Casey and Elias at premieriwm.com. Click Get Started, or you can call for an appointment, 800-383-6590. Named to Forbes 2025 Best in State Wealth Management Teams. And Casey, I'm going to wrap this one up here real quick by sort of putting the 5 and 6 in this note together, because we sort of already talked a little bit about 4. The idea of when you have a financial plan, then you are taking into account risk, comfort, and the timeline, and then also the importance of making sure that it just goes without you having to do it.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the people who've been extremely successful, and this is one of the reasons 401ks actually work extremely well, it's automated, right? You don't have to think about it. It just actually happens. So, when you understand, I know how much I need to save, you know the different accounts that it needs to go to, and you have an automated system where you're putting it over to those different accounts, and then you don't have to think about it. Like, it makes life so easy. Yeah. And that's really, at the end of the day, when we build out that financial plan, bringing in that level of simplicity, or bringing this entire complex ethereal idea that is out there that I want to spend some money at some point in time, maybe sooner, maybe further away, and bringing it down and translating it into, okay, let's save these over to these different places, set that up, and you have a very high likelihood that you're going to be okay. Like, that's what we do. Yeah. And being able to do those aspects of it, having that investment allocation really dictated and driven for us, and then also putting it over onto that autopilot gives us the best opportunity for future success.
Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC. The opinions voiced in this show are for general information purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial or tax advisor prior to investing. Premier Investments in Wealth Management and LPL Financial do not provide specific individualized tax or legal advice. We suggest that you discuss your specific situation with a qualified tax or legal advisor. Economic forecasts set forth may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that strategies promoted will be successful. All performance referenced is historical and is not a guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and cannot be invested into directly. There is no assurance that the techniques and strategies discussed are suitable for all investors or will yield positive outcomes. The purchase of certain securities may be required to affect some of the strategies. Investing involves risks, including possible loss of principal. There is no guarantee that a diversified portfolio will enhance overall returns or outperform a non-diversified portfolio. Diversification does not protect against market risk. Forbes' Best in State Wealth Management Teams ranking was developed by Shook Research and is based on in-person, virtual, and telephone due diligence meetings, and a ranking algorithm that includes a measure of each team's best practices, client retention, industry experience, review of compliance records, firm nominations, and quantitative criteria, including assets under management and revenue generated for their firms. Investment performance is not a criterion because client objectives and risk tolerances vary, and advisors rarely have audited performance reports. Shook's research and rankings provide opinions intended to help investors choose the right financial advisor and team, and are not indicative of future performance or representative of any one client's experience. Past performance is not an indication of future results. Neither Forbes nor Shook Research receive compensation in exchange for placement on the ranking. For more information, please see www.shookresearch.com. Shook is a registered trademark of Shook Research, LLC.